Welcome back to the Common Sense Show, and to everyone who found this video, who realized that nobody's coming to save them, welcome back. Today, I'm talking about Spirit Airlines. Just days ago, an entire airline ceased to exist. Poof, gone. And today we're doing two things. I'm going to tell you how this even happened, give you a little bit of the backstory, but then I'm also going to eulogize Spirit Airlines. We're going to give them the send-off that they deserve. We're going to weave in some of the best Spirit Airlines moments as we give them their final send-off off into that wonderful place where airline companies go, bankruptcy. Let's get started.
Budget carrier Spirit Airlines is shutting down operations after nearly 34 years in business. Spirit struggled with losses for years and was hit hard in recent months by rising jet fuel costs.
Spirit Airlines wasn't always a punchline. It started back in Detroit in about 1983. It started as a company called Charter One. And basically what it did was it was a tour operator that would fly between Atlantic City and the Bahamas. By 1992, it became Spirit Airlines from Charter One, and by 2007, they had hired a CEO named Ben Baldanza, and they became America's first ultra-low-cost airline. The model was simple. Strip down everything. Strip down the ticket to almost nothing, and then charge for everything and build it back up. Carry-on bag, first check bag, bigger seat.
Check out the big front seat. It's so big, and so in the front, you'll be marveled at by groups 2, 3, and 4.
You want to pick your seat? Fee. Boarding pass at the airport, fee. I mean, they just stacked everything on top of their base level ticket. That's how they were able to kind of get the numbers actually up. And eventually what they found out was that the average revenue per customer, in addition to their base fee, was about $56. They leveraged the heck out of this model and they decided to scale it. And for a while, it worked. The margins were excellent. The planes were full and Spirit Airline was growing super fast. But here's the problem. It had a fatal weakness. Baked in the DNA of competing on price, only works when your competitors are not competing on price as well. Listen, I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades, a founder and CEO of many companies. Let me tell you something. When you compete on price, it is a race to the bottom. And ultimately, other airlines started entering into the ultra low cost competition against Spirit Airlines. And again, it's a race to the bottom. So fast forward to 2012, Delta, then United, then American, they all started introducing ultra low cost tiered economy class seating, stripped away their version of their tickets, and then they did the whole tiered, build in the base model fee, just like Spirit Airlines. But here's the thing. When those other competitors came into the ultra low cost fare, they had a better reputation, way more routes than Spirit Airlines, and they offered way more choice to their customers. So if you add those 3 things up, better fares, more routes, and a better reputation, you get a recipe for success. And that puts pressure on Spirit Airlines, whose reputation was basically built on the fact that we're lower than everybody else, but not anymore. By 2022, Spirit was looking for a bit of a lifeline. Frontier tried to merge with them. Fast forward. And what ended up happening was JetBlue swooped in with a hostile takeover bid and eventually locked in $3.8 billion offer. And Spirit shareholders said yes to JetBlue. But here's the problem. The government said no. And when the government said no, and they failed to reach an agreement with the current administration, then they were not able to substantiate their fees. By November 2024, Spirit had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company had lost more than $2.5 billion since the start of 2020, COVID. They emerged in March of 2025 with a restructuring plan they called Spirit Fit, bundled fares with premium-ish offers and a new identity, but the brand damage was too deep. You can't go for 30 plus years trying to be an ultra low cost airliner and then all of a sudden switch to premium offerings. It just kind of doesn't work in the mind of the consumers. You build your brand and that's what you kind of live with. It's hard to reconfigure a brand. Some people do it successfully. Spirit wasn't able to. But what kind of reputation did they have? But this brings us to our first Spirit moment. This happened when there were 9 flights canceled in Florida and it turned into a massive brawl. Let's take a look.
It's a passenger revolt as total chaos erupts at the airport. Police were called in to sort out turbulent scenes involving furious passengers at the Spirit Airlines terminal in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Here's that ugly moment from another angle. This passenger was taken away in handcuffs as things around him got heated. This woman was hustled away by officers. Another passenger was pinned to the ground by 3 cops. The trouble exploded after Spirit canceled 9 flights, including one to LaGuardia.
Somebody was like slamming their hand down on the counter and the police came.
Very angry people. Everybody had places to be and couldn't be there.
Check out this crazy scene. After order was restored, deputies line up behind the check-in counters just in case. Spirit is blaming a work slowdown by its pilots union for the flight cancellations. We are shocked and saddened to see the videos, the airline says. This is a result of unlawful labor activity by some Spirit pilots designed to disrupt Spirit operations for our customers. But the Pilots Association says its members are not engaged in a job action. It's just the latest craziness involving airline personnel and passengers. Only now, the tension has come to the terminal.
As you can see from that video, it got pretty ugly. Spirit became known as this company where people like to brawl, get into fights, and we're going to see more of that in some of our top moments. But first, let's talk about how Spirit tried to restructure themselves. And their whole restructuring plan was built around jet fuel, which was about $2.24 a gallon in 2026. They made a reasonable assumption based on the market prices at the time, but then the Iran war happened. And as of May 2025, jet fuel is sitting at about $4.51 a gallon. That is double what they had anticipated for fuel costs. And what happens when basically the airliner is comprised mostly of fuel? Well, you get crushed by margins when it comes to the operation costs, especially if you're a low-cost operator. Typically, low-cost businesses deal in volume, and lots of volume. They have very small margins, which is why they have to deal in such high volume to make up for the fact that they don't have as big a margin as other companies. So August 2025 came around. Spirit was back in bankruptcy court for the second time in under 2 years, and they basically raised serious doubt, substantial doubt, in fact, in their regulatory filings, whether or not they could continue to operate. And so what ended up happening is that the White House put together a $500 million bailout package, but their bondholders refused it, and they did not want to get in line behind the government's debt, which, you know, in some cases, I can understand. May 2nd, 2026, at 3 a.m., Spirit Airlines, well, they took their final flight that landed in Dallas-Fort Worth. This brings us to our next reaction, our top Spirit moment, which is basically, this is part of like the reputation that Spirit had built for themselves. Look at this. This is an employee who's just fed up.
Right. Now, you all want to get on this plane or not? Yes, we do. All right. So, everyone's going to shut up, and we're going to say this once, and we're only going to say it again because we're frustrated as hell. Look, I don't even know what aircraft's here because everybody's screaming numbers. I don't know what I have. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what aircraft's sitting out there. I don't know what's going on. You guys won't give me a minute. Please give me a minute.
So basically, there started being videos that surface over the last, I would say like 5 to 10 years. You probably have seen some on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram of people just videoing their experiences interacting with Spirit, right? So that's kind of like crazy that Spirit Airlines just kept showing up in the news for all the wrong reasons. You know, we talked about the business. Let's talk a little bit about the money. Spirit Airlines wasn't just a company. It was a culture. It was a whole experience. And before we close the coffin on Spirit Airlines,
you know, at least Spirit died doing what they loved, which is being the worst airline in the history of the world.
we got to pay our respects to, you know, moments that define Spirit Airlines. One of them was an Onion, which is a pretty much a satire magazine, that ran a headline that Spirit Airlines is the worst, right? Spirit's own CEO at the time responded to customer complaints with a reply all email, which was posted. And he said, I quote, "We owe him nothing as far as I'm concerned," talking about a customer. "Let him tell the world how bad we are." Yeah, that was a real email from the Spirit CEO. Let's get back to our next top moment when on this flight, a group of women decided to play patty cake. Take a look.
Cell phone video shows chaos in a Spirit Airlines cabin. A brawl breaks out between a group of women on a plane. There's hair pulling, pushing, and it even looks like someone throws a punch. Other passengers and a flight attendant can be seen trying to break this thing up. Witnesses say it started after Spirit Flight 141 landed. Apparently, a few passengers were playing their music very loudly. Passengers close to them got angry. Words were exchanged, and then this erupted. Other passengers who saw this video say it looked beyond frightening.
I'd be really afraid just because of all the, with security and all the issues with that going on right now. I mean, I would think that was bigger than just two girls fighting with music. The plane is probably the last place you'd want to do something like that.
Witnesses say the fight didn't last long. Once it was announced police were called, things calmed down.
I would freak out more so than anything else. I would be scared out of my mind because you're stuck on a plane. There's nowhere else you can go.
No one was seriously hurt. One person was cited.
That was a classic top Spirit moment. Now, you may have seen some of these already before I even showed them to you in this video. However, I want to know in the comments, what is your favorite Spirit moment? It could have been a video. It could have been your own experience. It could be something you heard about them. What do you know about Spirit Airlines that nobody else knows? Or generally speaking, what has been your interaction with Spirit Airlines? I want to know. Now, the last of my top moments that I'm sharing, eulogizing Spirit today, is this woman who got kicked off a plane and then she went nuts. She sounded like she was possessed or something. It was crazy. Take a look at this top moment.
I can't breathe. Why are you touching my leg? Why are you touching my leg? I can't breathe. This is George Floyd.
Get off the plane. What are you doing, man? Touch me again. Oh, you'll touch me. Touch me, mother.
I told you to stick with me to the end of the video, and here we are. I hope you now understand why Spirit may have went out of business, some of the troubles that they had. Here's a real story that I think Spirit tells us. It built its entire business model around the fact that there were working people in this country, everyday people who like to travel, who didn't want to pay exorbitant fees, right? Sounds simple. They were desperate for a cheaper option, and they were right. They wanted to be able to fly for cheaper than what some of the other airlines provided. The other airlines saw the success that Spirit Airlines was having. They jumped in the game. And an important life lesson here: never compete on price. If you compete on price, it's the race to the bottom. You need to compete on value. Businesses win, and generally even humans win. Even if you're trying to present yourself at work as a person who is someone that could help the company out, your value to the company or your value in business has to be greater than the cost. So in business, your value to the customer has to be greater than what they're paying. At work, your value relative to the company has to be greater than what they're paying you for a salary. When you change that value proposition, typically you win. But whenever you compete on price or you make it about price, it's a race to the bottom. And if you are working for someone and you have the exact same skills as everyone else and you don't differentiate yourself, it's a race to the bottom, right? Because they're just going to find the cheaper version of you that they can, no matter the age. Same thing in business. They're going to find the cheaper version of you somewhere else because they don't think that you can do the same thing that they can. The system didn't save Spirit. Spirit couldn't save Spirit. The business model was broken. Spirit couldn't adapt. And honestly, this is what financial literacy is all about. If this video on Spirit Airlines made you think a little bit about this story, a little bit about business and life, and have a little bit of fun while we revisited some of the top moments, hit the like button or just share the video. It's so important to tell YouTube that you like videos like this. I would love to see you on the next one. I can't wait to tell another story about another business and things that people are going through. Until next time, I'm Micah. And if you don't go about doing your business, you're going to be doing the business of someone else. Until next time, I'm out of here. Bye.